Today we're going to look at the powers of Congress. There's three types of powers in Congress. The express powers, which are powers that are written in the Constitution. The implied powers, which are powers that are deducted from the express powers. And the non-legislative powers, which lay out the tasks that Congress does besides actually making laws. First express power that we're going to look at is the power to tax. And obviously it's one of the biggest express powers. The federal government takes tons of money from us every year, so it's one of the more important ones. Also important when you look at money is the borrowing power. The federal government can borrow whatever money they want. They do a practice called deficit financing. What that means is the government spends more than they take in every year, then they borrow money to make up the difference. Congress also practices the commerce power, regulating interstate and foreign trade. This has a lot to do with banking and practices like that. Also the currency power, which is self-explanatory, it's coining money. Congress has foreign relations powers. Basically, it's things like regulating immigration, combating terrorism, things like that. And they share these with the president. Also shared with the president are the war powers. Only Congress can declare war, even though it's a popular misconception that the president declares war. It's actually Congress that does that. A couple other ones: naturalization, which we've talked about. The postal power, copyrights and patents, which are pretty self-explanatory. Also self-explanatory is weights and measures. And then the judicial powers, which you can see are creating federal courts and setting federal crimes. The implied powers, these are the powers that aren't written in the Constitution, but they're implied from the Constitution. They come from what's called the necessary and proper clause, which we've nicknamed the elastic clause because the implied powers take an express power and stretch it. Some examples, if you have, for example, taxes, the implied power with that is to punish tax evaders. To raise and support an army, the implied power is instituting a draft if necessary. Naturalization, you get regulating immigration. So you can see that the express power and implied power are related to one another. The third type of power, the non-legislative powers, and these are the things that Congress does that are really outside the lawmaking scope. Things like constitutional amendments, choosing a president if one doesn't receive the majority, impeachment, impeaching the president, which we'll talk a little more about then later on. Things like appointments and treaties. And then Congress also has the investigatory power. You can see the baseball players here. A couple years ago, Congress called in baseball players to investigate steroids in baseball. They can really investigate anything. That's all for the powers of Congress. Thank you.